Dubai has this, it's a dream place. You come here and you think you achieve it just like that. But I don't think it's that simple.
I think that Dubai attracts people who are already quite courageous. Here, you are constantly surrounded by people who just want more from life. And I think that makes the environment incredibly inspiring.
It's such a fast-growing city. You gotta stay on top of things here, right? What's your view when it comes to rent versus buying in Dubai?
I would answer it as an entrepreneur, speaking to entrepreneurs, right? Because that's the position I'm in. Potentially is the right way to go.
Sebastian, so when it comes to commercial property, how many have you got now?
So we've got about 20 commercial units. One of our strategies for actually growing commercial portfolio is to...
It's business that's thriving and growing, your family, podcasts, you're writing books, charity. You are truly inspiring, Sebastian.
But it didn't used to be that way. Like, I feel like I've made every mistake possible. I was a very hardworking, inexperienced manager. Managing people is a skill you develop over time.
What would you say makes Dubai unique?
I think it's funny because when people ask me that, how long would you live here or would you ever live anywhere else? My question to that, back to them is, can you find anywhere better? It's really difficult. Anywhere in the world just seems unbeatable.
Do you think you would be able to make such global impact if you were not in Dubai? Hey everyone, welcome to Keys to Dubai. Today I have a very special guest and a dear friend of mine, Sebastian Bates. And I'll let you introduce yourself since you're such an excellent speaker.
No pressure. Cool. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sebastian Bates. I am the founder of the Warrior Academy, which is the largest martial arts academy in the Middle East. We specialize in developing the character of young people by developing their confidence, their conduct, and concentration. So we work with families primarily in the UAE to do that. I'm also the founder of the Bates Foundation, which is a UK-based charity that's taken our concept of the Warrior Academy and the Warrior Method and embedded it into the biggest slums, homeless shelters, and orphanages on the planet, where we now sponsor over 4,000 vulnerable children every single week across 10 countries.
Sebastian, you've been here 5 years and you're only 35. Yet you've managed to build very successful business that expanding, and so is your family. How do you manage that? What is your success?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because we grew the Warrior Academy in the UK for 10 years. We got to the stage with the Warrior Academy in the UK where the biggest thing that was restricting the business's growth was geography. So we launched the Warrior Academy in the countryside of England. I wanted to test it somewhere urban, and I was thinking London. And I saw a friend of mine, Tim, who's behind the camera there, and he suggested, why don't you start the business here? So I started looking around, and I realized that no one was doing what we were doing. Even though we were based in the countryside, we only had, 3 or 4 in the team, only 500 kids. No one was doing what we were doing. And so we decided to move to the UAE after a few kind of weekends here, trips here to see schools and to understand where we could help families. We made the decision to move. It's quite a nerve-wracking decision, really, because obviously you're moving house. I had a newborn daughter. I say newborn, she was about a year old. But we were moving from our dream home in the UK and the countryside to giving everything up. We took on some debt. We moved over here. We poured everything we had into the business in Dubai. And it was tough. It was really, really challenging mentally to do that. But it was very, very quickly we could see the potential out here. People absolutely loved what we did. We did a lot of online marketing, whereas our competitors out here weren't doing that. So before we even stepped foot into the UAE, people already had a decent awareness of who we were. And within half a year, the work we had done had got us recognized by the royal family. So I was working directly with and his children. So I was flying around the UK and Dubai working with them, which was an amazing privilege. And then we grew to about 200 students, and then disaster hit. COVID came, completely crushed the entire business, and we had to start from scratch.
That is crazy. Well, I remember COVID. It was such tough times for everyone. And considering that you work with people, how was that for you? Because you cannot really work online, can you? It's all physical on the ground.
Yeah. I think the challenge that a lot of people who had a physical business like us was trying to pivot online, which we did, right? So we pivoted online. The challenge was the uncertainty. We didn't know when we were going to be able to relaunch, when we could open up again. A lot of the parents who were sending their kids to us lost their jobs, had to leave the country. We really leaned into the community, did loads of stuff to help support them. We were online every single day, giving them classes, looking after the families that were a part of our kind of community. And then we got to the stage where, it was kind of August, September 2020, several lockdowns later, my wife had just given birth, and I was there in a situation where I had no certainty of what was going on in the future. We were running out of money because we weren't making that much with the business anymore. I started 2 or 3 other businesses, which actually did quite well. They became 6-figure businesses during the months that I launched them. But they were completely separate to the Warrior Academy, and the Warrior Academy needed to survive on its own to keep the staff, right? So we made, we took the big risk of reinvesting everything we had into commercial real estate. And and what we did was we went into a big office block, and we realized that no one was in there because everyone was running out of commercial real estate, like the house was on fire, right, during COVID, because they didn't know when they were going to be able to open again. And so we used that as an opportunity to negotiate some really good rates. And I remember, what we did is we took over one small office, about 1,500 square foot, and then we took first refusal on the office to the right and to the left. So basically, during a lockdown, we renovated this office. And as soon as the lockdown was over, we were the first martial arts club to open. So while a lot of companies and clubs, had completely closed down business, we then opened. And very quickly we went from 0 students to 200 students. And within a year, we had over 700 students, took over the contract on the right side and the left side. And that one decision ended up being 6 refurbed offices within that block within about 18 months. So yeah, it was a big jump, but it certainly paid off.
So you technically took advantage of COVID in a way, that you could get a cheaper rent, renovate the space.
Totally, and I think whenever there's uncertainty, there's also opportunity. Whenever there's this moment where there's decision-making energy, right? It's going to force people into moving one way or the other way. Opportunity starts creeping up. If you're able to kind of spot it and focus on it, and then have the courage to actually double down on that, right? And I think that's what we're experiencing right now with Dubai. I think a lot of people are looking at this area in particular and seeing the huge opportunities that they can have. And I think, the one defining thing that's separating people from actually do that or not is courage.
That is so true. And you also a mentor for people, especially for new businessmen. I know you do that, you encourage them and you help them get out of the comfort zone. And I think people who come here, they really need it. Because Dubai has this, it's a dream place. You come here and you think you achieve it just like that. But I don't think it's that simple. So what do you say to those who just come here and they start the business? How do you mentor them?
I think that Dubai attracts people who are already quite courageous. I look around and I see everyone from the Uber driver to the cleaner to the waiter to the CEO to whatever. Everyone here is really focused on trying to earn more, trying to improve their life, and having the courage to become an economic expat, right? And it's that comes with loads of risk. And I think that makes this city a very unique and inspiring place. And it's very different to where I'm from. Where I'm from, you get people living in the same place, quite happy with the same life, not challenging themselves, not really stepping outside their comfort zone. Here, you're constantly surrounded by people who just want more from life. And I think that makes the environment incredibly inspiring.
That is so true. It's such a fast-growing city. So much is happening. We look at AI and how it's affecting businesses. It's insane what's happening. You gotta stay on top of things here, right? It's very fast.
And that's the downside as well, right? So yeah, it's great that there's so much opportunity, but you can get wrapped up in it very, very quickly. And so, if I was going to mentor someone to come over here, the sort of things I would say to them when they are eventually here is find a way to also inject some peace into your life, because it's very easy to get wrapped up and just think that your life is 100 miles an hour, right? If anyone's watching this and they live in Dubai, you probably realize how fast time goes. I look back between now and the COVID days and I'm like, that was 5 years ago. It feels like 1 year. Do you know what I mean? It's just gone so fast. And I think part of that is because you don't have loads of seasons here. So it all kind of blends into one, right? And the other is how fast-paced everything is. So what we do with our family is we go to Thailand, for a month every year, or Italy, where the pace of life is so much slower. And it's, it just slows us down. It's kind of like a mental and spiritual reset, right? Which I think you sometimes need when you live here.
That's so true. You do
So
need
it's finding that break from Dubai, which is really important, right?
And may I say, you are moving fast even when it comes to family, right? You have 3 kids now. 6 months ago you had little Mila.
Yeah.
So it's 3. Like, you are moving fast as well.
That's it. I'm in a rush to make more,
Oh my God, I don't know how you manage that. Honestly, It's business that's thriving and growing. Your family, you have your podcast, you're writing books, charity. You are truly inspiring, Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can look like I'm doing a lot, but that's because I have a lot of leverage. And I think that, when you have less than 10 people on your team and you're the founder, you are doing everything. Like, you're head of sales, your marketing, your technical delivery, your admin, your finance, you're the accountant, you're the person cleaning the toilet, you're doing everything, right? And then I think you get this stage where you're sort of maybe 20 plus staff, and you start to realize that you contribute to the business, but the business's success is only partly down to you, right? You're just a very hardworking employee. And so I kind of feel like I've developed something which has now become very independent and isn't just influenced by me, but it's influenced by lots of people. And so, a big part of that, actually transitioning from a small team to a big team, is this process of learning how to let go. And I think that, from my perspective, going through that, we've got close to 100 staff now around the world. It's finding the right people, stepping back, letting them do their job, and just trying to encourage the culture in the right direction. It's a bit like having kids, right? I kind of see parallels between that. In that you have a child, you have to keep this tiny, innocent, fragile thing alive, right? And your job is just caregiver. And as they get older and older, you've got to step back into more of a mentoring role, right? And so with a mentoring role, you need to find other people who can influence that child, that small business, in the right way, in the way that you want, that's close to your values. And so for me, a big part of that learning was just learning to let go. And so now we've got an amazing team. We've got an amazing leadership team, operations director, CMO, CFO, and so on, who are just so good. And I've just got full faith in them,
I know, I have to say, I've met your people and all of them are truly talented, amazing. I remember I even asked you, I'm like, where did you get those guys from? And you said some of them you flew from UK, like you paid like a lot of attention to careful selection of those guys. And now that you're building up, and it's all affecting, right, your customers.
Yeah.
Look at the kids who are your clients. It's not just the kids, it's also their parents.
Yep.
Because you're dealing with kind of both.
Yeah.
And I know some of them.
But it didn't used to be that way. Like, I feel like I've made every mistake possible. I was in a position where I was managing a team of 25 or so. And I look back and I don't think I was a good manager. I think I was an inexperienced manager because I'd gone from, managing a team of 5 to 25 within 18 months, right? And so I was a very hardworking, inexperienced manager who had a lot of energy and wanted to do a lot of good and was very passionate, but ultimately managing people is a skill you develop over time. And from a cultural point of view, we started bringing on the wrong people. And the reason we've got the right people now is because we had the ability to recognize we were hiring the wrong people. And so I brought an amazing director of operations on. And he came in, he had 20 years of managing big teams, 200 plus. And he immediately highlighted what the issues were, right? And what was affecting our team culture and all this sort of stuff. And very quickly removed the wrong people, brought on the right people. And within a year, it was a completely different business. We pretty much doubled in size that year since he joined. Since the point he joined in the UAE, where we had about 25 people, to now, we're over 50, 60 just in the UAE, which he pretty much manages. And so there's a big difference in my mind between management and leadership. And I think that my role within the organization is that the kind of founder that comes in, really encourages people that this is what we're doing, right? This is the big vision. This is where we're going. But the actual day-to-day management, I think if I was in the office every day, I would do everyone's head in. It'd be too intense. It'd be too much, So I think there's a right time to have a leader come on and bring in a big speech. And then there's the day-to-day nurturing of the culture where you need someone who's really brilliant at that. And that's basically what we found.
Yeah, I think you're very inspirational to your team as well. And I think that's how you lead them, right? You inspire. You inspire me That's why I have you here today, on this podcast, because you are like my role model. And also, besides the business, when it comes to your family, like I absolutely admire that you are such a great husband. You are an amazing, loving dad. And look at your house. I'm a guest there sometimes. You're an amazing cook. I love that. Sometimes I look at you and I wonder, how do you manage all that? And talking about housing, since we talk about real estate, but what's your view when it comes to rent versus buying in Dubai?
Yeah, so with this question, I would answer it as an entrepreneur, speaking to entrepreneurs, right? Because that's the position I'm in. I think if you're trying to launch a business out here and you want to use all of your available resources to grow that business aggressively, potentially renting is the right way to go. It certainly was for me. I felt like if I was going to invest in property which I live in here, then I might miss out on some of the opportunities that having liquidity could give me. We're just launching academy, another academy, our fourth academy here. It's costing about $500,000. If we didn't have liquidity, we couldn't do that. Now I could put that $500,000 into a property and live in it, but then that $500,000 would, within a couple of years, we'll be generating $4 or $5 million a year. So for us, it's really important to seize those moments of opportunity in this fast growth stage. If you are an entrepreneur who's already made a decent amount of wealth and you've got the spare liquidity, you're not aggressively reinvesting in your business and you're looking to potentially buy, or you're moving here, right? The advice I would give is seek out someone who's done it and knows what they're doing. I feel like there are so many mistakes you could make. And let's be honest, if you are a business owner, you're not necessarily a property expert. You've been spending your time getting really good at growing your business. You don't have the knowledge or skills to develop, to find the perfect property and to step over all of the potential pitfalls that you could fall into, right? So my advice would be find someone like you who's actually been there and done it, knows what they're doing when it comes to property, can help prevent you make the mistakes. I've got a property business in the UK. We've bought and sold and flipped several properties back home. I've made so many mistakes on that, with that company, and it was mostly residential property. But it's so easy to make a mistake, which costs you so much money because you're leveraging, huge capital to do stuff. One small mistake can cost you an absolute fortune. So from my point of view, entrepreneur, aggressively growing a business without access to, huge amounts of liquidity, rent for the first year. After that, you're in a position to buy, and when you go down that route, get good advice. Because
not all agents have, your interest at heart. Sometimes they lead you in direction where they benefit and not you. And I know someone who just invested $20 million, bought off-plan property, and now the person is like, what the hell have I done? I'm not getting return on investment, there is no infrastructure, I don't know when it's gonna be completed, etc., etc. So especially when it's big money, or people saving all their life, or taking loans, that's like some big decisions. It can be investment or buying a house. Sebastian, so when it comes to commercial property, how many have you got now?
So we've got about 20 commercial units. One of our strategies for actually growing through our commercial portfolio is to have several units next to each other. One of the reasons for that is because it makes planning permission so much easier. If I need to have separate rooms, it's a lot easier if all the fire regulations are done, the air conditioning's done, and it's just a simple case of knocking down a hole in the wall for a door between two units, right? Then you've got a community room for parents, you've got a dojo there, or a storage room or whatever. So we very much choose places based on how we can minimize the amount of applications we have to do, the amount of red tape we need to use, or the amount of planning permission we need to have. So that's how we actually operate when it comes to selecting the units. But in terms of selecting the kind of geographical area of those units, we've probably got quite a unique way of doing that. The way we do that is we look at a map, we analyze where our current members are, and we did this exercise just recently, where it was very clear to us that we had something like 300 people who were coming to our academies from Marina and the Palm. And so we identified that Jumeirah Islands would sit in the middle of that area, right? It's a really beautiful locations, some amazing villas and homes in the area, lots of families who are ideal target market, and it's only 15 minutes from the Palma Marina. And so what we've actually done is we've created zones within the UAE, within Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and we've identified about 6 different zones. And our goal is to go from where we are now with 3, 4 in the next month, to then 6 academies within each zone. And the zones look a little bit strange when you actually show them on a map. They're not just like squares. The reason for that is because we've used the exact addresses from our customers to map out exactly where they are. And then these zones draw a picture of how long it takes to get there. And the boundary we found for parents in Dubai is 15 minutes. If it's more than 15 minutes, people don't want to do it. Like back home, people would drive an hour to get to a class. I used to drive an hour and a half to teach. But here, it's really a convenience market. So what we want to do is within the next 3 years, have a Warrior Academy within 15 minutes of every single residential area in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So that's how we choose our commercial units.
That's a great plan. So you will continue growing and expanding.
Yeah, and do you know what? Funding's really accessible here, which I think makes this city so entrepreneurial. There are so many opportunities to borrow. You do need to have personal guarantees on pretty much everything, which then puts you at a higher risk. In the UK, I feel like it's somewhat safer when it comes to if you make a mistake as a business owner or whatever, you're quite protected. Over here with personal guarantees, you're not as much, right? That being said, you just do your due diligence and you make sure you've got a solid business model before you expand. And I think if you've got all that lined up, you're then in a position where you've got enormous financial leverage, not just through traditional loans. We're using a direct-to-vendor loan at the moment, which basically means the bank pays directly to our vendors. So we don't actually have the money coming to our account. Instead, it goes directly to our suppliers. And you develop these relationships with banks and so on, which means that you've got access to deeper pockets as you grow and develop. So that's really been a big part of our strategy.
That is amazing. I also wanted to ask you about Dubai, and why do you think this place is so special and unique since you've been living here for 5 years? And I know you travel a lot. I mean, you've lived in UK, but you're all over the place. You were in Thailand for a month, or you were in Greece for another month. So you know what's happening in the world, yet you chose this location as your home. What would you say makes Dubai unique? Yeah,
I think it's funny because when people ask me that, they always ask, how long would you live here? Or would you ever live anywhere else? And my question to that, back to them is, can you find anywhere better? And that kind of sounds like propaganda, right? Like I've been paid to say that, but I haven't. It's really difficult anywhere in the world to find somewhere that's this safe for your kids, that's got this much opportunity, where the weather is this good throughout the year, excluding 2 or 3 months in the summer, where there's so many entrepreneurs, which has got the tax environment, which has the potential for growth. I just think, from a business point of view, it ticks all the boxes. From a family point of view, it's amazing. From a lifestyle point of view, it's fantastic as well. There are certain things I'd be careful of. Not getting wrapped up in keeping up with the Joneses and all this sort of stuff, right? Trying to live well within your means, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make when they actually do move here. And you saw that during COVID when everyone left who was doing that, right? So being very aware of that. But I think from a family point of view, the schools are great. There's a chance for your kids to meet other kids from all over the world. The cultural diversity is amazing here. My kids have got friends from 4 or 5 different continents, right? Which is great. Back home they wouldn't. All their friends would just be from Somerset or Wiltshire, right? So it's amazing for them to have that diversity, I think, right? And then the traveling. I think if you, in an ideal world, for me, maybe in a few years, we wouldn't just live in one place. We'd live in 3 places. 8 or 9 months in the UAE, maybe a couple of months in Italy or the Mediterranean, and maybe 1 month in Thailand or something, right? So you've got that diversity in terms of, the kind of green tropical area, and then the mountains, and then the UAE throughout the year for that stability for your kids. But yeah, this as a base just seems unbeatable.
It's such a good base, I know. And it's international. And looking at the Emirates Airlines at airport here, like you can fly anywhere, 5 hours,
yeah.
You're in Maldives. 7 hours, you're in Europe. It's like so strategically located. It's very convenient, I agree with you.
And imagine the huge attraction for most people now moving here is they're typically doing online businesses, right? I'm here because I've got a physical business, but if I had an online business, even more reason to stay here and to come here, right? And so from a time zone perspective, this location's great. To be able to get to Africa or Asia or Europe, you're just so close, right? So yeah, exactly that. Geographically, it's perfect.
You're right, Africa. I think, aren't you going to Kenya?
Yeah, good. Next week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is it the charity?
Yeah. So we sponsor about 4,000 vulnerable kids every week in slums, homeless shelters, orphanages, and Kenya is our biggest country for that. So we teach about 3,000 kids in Kenya. Started 3 years ago in Kenya. Our first club was 30 homeless boys in a rescue shelter there. And now that's grown and evolved into huge orphanages, and we're in the biggest slum in Africa, the third biggest slum in the world, Kibera slum, in a rescue center started by some of the mums in the location, which now has thousands of kids. So we're heavily involved in Kenya, which is basically just down the road. I'm taking about 15 entrepreneurs, some of them from the UAE, to Kenya to see the impact of their work, right? So every year they donate as part of the Bates Foundation, and every year we take them on a tour to actually see the impact.
That is absolutely amazing. Well, tell me honestly, do you think you would be able to make such global impact if you were not in Dubai?
That is a really good question. I think there is certainly no way that I'd be able to do it. If I had stayed where I was in the UK, in the countryside in England. I think that the unique opportunity Dubai gives you is very much, the way I explain this is back home, growing a business, especially within my industry, is a bit like pushing a snowball up a hill, trying to make it grow. Here, you're pushing that snowball down a hill because of all the leverage and opportunity you've got. It grows and it compounds very quickly. You're in a tax situation which really favors entrepreneurs and helps you grow your business, scale your business. Now, if you're like me and you're very impact driven as well, and you've got this mindset that your business has the ability to be a force for good in the world, and it's not just about making money for yourself and having an amazing lifestyle, it's about impact and adventure and growing a business that solves problems and makes money, but also provides you with so much fulfillment and makes a genuine impact in the world, then I think you're in a very unique position to actually double down on that. So if I look at the UK for 10, 15 years, 10% of our students were on scholarships, free tuition. When we got to the UAE, despite COVID, let's say COVID was 4.5 years ago, so we had to start from scratch from there. From that point to now, we're now arguably the largest martial arts academy for underprivileged children on the planet. That is all down to the opportunity Dubai has given us.
Sebastian, thank you so much for coming. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for joining us at this episode. We'll see you next time.